Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles, and it's another episode of The Good, the Bad and the Warships, where I highlight and showcase some of the more amusing incidents that happen when you're playing your warships. We're going to start off with Mogdatix in the Japanese ever-reliable Tier 5 destroyer, the Minakaze. Although Mogdatix has a bit of a dog of a game at first, he actually launches 76 torpedoes during the course of this battle, and only 6 of them hit the targets. But the ones that do find targets really matter. To begin with, he captures the B point in the centre of the map. He steams up to the corner of this little island, sneaks around the corner just inside the cap circle, tucks the ship up in this little cove around the side of the island, slows down, comes to a halt, and then with one eye on his situational awareness indicator, just in case he gets spotted by any enemies, he just sits here and waits to cap. Slow start to the game, but somebody has to capture these flags. And it's at around about then where there he is. There is the enemy Minakaze player. Now there's only one destroyer on the enemy team, but this guy was really good, and he's constantly frustrating Mogdatix's efforts to get anything done. He's been spotted, but he doesn't panic. He blazes forward and then immediately slows down and pops his smoke screen, rather than panicking and just steaming out of there at full speed, because he's still trying to cap. Shots coming in, missing harmlessly. Watch for the torpedoes. There they are. Yep. There are the torpedoes from the enemy destroyer. And if he just steamed out of there at full speed, as most of us would have done, he would have probably died. So, there it is. He's managed to cap the B point. So, okay, job done. Time to get out of here. Unfortunately, for most of the rest of the game, that's about as good as it gets. Whether by accident or design, the enemy aircraft carriers just always seem to have their aircraft in exactly the right spot. Mogdatix is looking at all of these juicy cruisers and battleships, but he just cannot get close enough to them because of this screen of dive bombers, torpedo bombers and fighters that are between him and his targets, and he cannot get close enough to them to attack them without being spotted by the aircraft. Unfortunately, for the majority of the game, that's about as good as it gets, because whether due to accident or design, the enemy aircraft carriers constantly had their aircraft in exactly the right spot to block him from making any kind of attack runs on all these enemy cruisers and destroyers. And when the aircraft weren't doing it, the enemy destroyer kept revealing his position. There he is again. It's as if this enemy destroyer had some kind of spider sense for Mogdatix, and he just always knew where he was going to pop up, and this is almost going to be disastrous right here. He's been spotted. Everybody spots a destroyer, everybody starts shooting at the destroyer. He's managed to avoid some fire there, but there's a big old salvo coming in. Not that one, that's knocked out his steering gear, so he uses his damage control ability to fix the steering gear, and then he takes a big old salvo from that Wyoming. And that's knocked his steering gear out again. Now he is unable to control the direction in which the ship is sailing. And here come the torpedoes from that Minakaze. Now that was lucky. And he's lost half of his health after taking some serious hits from that battleship. By blind luck, he was sailing in the right direction and not in a straight line when his steering was knocked out for the second time, and that basically kept him alive. But he's not looking too good. He's fired multiple torpedoes already. He hasn't hit a single thing. That Minakaze and the enemy fighters just keep cock-blocking him all the way through this match. He's about to get his damage control ability back up and repair his steering just in time to not run himself aground. Can he finally get a break? No. No, he can't. Because guess what? It's that enemy Minakaze spotting him again. This guy just would not give him a break. So he pops some torpedoes in the water. Don't worry, they're not going to hit anything. And then motors out of there. He's no longer detected. What can he actually do to make a difference in this game? Okay, enemy ship's over there. Oh, it looks like the Wyoming's just been sunk. Took a big old hit from something. Alright, nothing but friendlies behind him. And here come the enemy aircraft yet again. Constantly in the wrong place, or from the enemy team's perspective, in exactly the right place to stop him from making a stealth approach on anything he can actually put a torpedo into. So he's forced to go the long way around. And that's when he spots an enemy cruiser Friendly cruiser up ahead is taking fire from multiple directions, and the enemy team are capping the A point. And it's not going to be long before they creep ahead on points as well as kills. No sign of those enemy aircraft. Another enemy cruiser just popped into view. This friendly cruiser doing the best he can, and Mogdatic's sneaking up and trying to get within torpedo range of this guy. But wouldn't you know it, just when he finally manages to make a successful stealth approach on an enemy cruiser, the guy turns. Well, it was pretty obvious that guy was in the turn. And Mogdatics did try to take account of that. The second and third spread of torpedoes were launched ahead of the target track, but not far enough. So every one of those torpedoes is going to miss as well. And the friendly cruiser has just gone down, and there are more aircraft threatening to give his position away. All those torpedoes just sail harmlessly by. But hey, he hasn't been spotted, and his torpedo tubes are about to reload. And that guy's not manoeuvring to avoid fire from a cruiser anymore. So, if at first you don't succeed, try again, and again, and again. But the enemy cruiser captain is not an idiot. He knows there's a destroyer out here somewhere, so he adjusts his course and his speed, and all of these torpedoes miss the target as well. And there's a whole bunch of targets just sitting there waiting to be torpedoed. But once again, Mogdatics cannot get close enough because of the threat of detection posed by all of these enemy aircraft. He puts some more torpedoes in the water, but the enemy cruisers are now sailing away from him, and so these torpedoes are playing catch-up, and they're not going to have the range to get there in time to do anything good. And of course, with all of these enemy aircraft on the way back to the enemy carriers, they're now effectively blocking him off from continuing the pursuit against these cruisers, so once again he's forced to disengage. So, while maintaining his distance from these dive bombers in order to not be detected and come under fire from all those cruisers, he does spot this Wyoming at the back of the pack, and the Wyoming's not a particularly fast battleship, not at all, certainly not as fast as any of those cruisers. And he has actually managed to separate himself from the pack, although he's doing his best to catch up and give some fire support to those cruisers up ahead of him. He can't go after the cruisers, in fact he's now lost sight of all the cruisers, but the battleship is a relatively inviting target as long as he doesn't get spotted by any of those aircraft. It's almost as if, that group of dive bombers in particular, there's nothing over here for them to be attacking. It's almost as if the enemy carrier, or one of the enemy carriers, is actually looking for him on purpose. So he's really going to have to pay attention to that squadron of dive bombers. Can he get close enough to put some fish into that Wyoming? He hasn't actually done a single point of damage to anything throughout the course of this game yet. He's lost sight of the dive bombers. Where did they go? I think this Wyoming might actually get away. He's been forced to take such a long route around that the Wyoming is now sailing away from him. And while he's now coming into range, the Wyoming is actually going to pass on the other side of that island. And once again, the torpedoes are playing catch-up, so the island is now blocking his shot, and the Wyoming, he couldn't even catch. Couldn't even catch and put torpedoes into something the size and speed of a Wyoming-class battleship. It's at times like this where you just wonder why you bothered hitting the battle button. Oh, and more aircraft. Fantastic. But oh, hang on a minute. Alright, he hasn't actually managed to hit or damage anything, but he has at least capped the B point, and now he's got the opportunity to cap the A point as well. And the team badly, badly need it, because they're losing ships at an astronomical rate, and the only thing that's kept them in the game this far was the points lead that they had by capturing 2 of the flag points at the start of the match. So he can still keep the team in the game by trying to reduce the rate at which the enemy team are gaining points by taking this flag off them, and so that's exactly what he does. And oh, hello, an enemy aircraft carrier. All right, finally. Okay. Keeps an eye on where the enemy aircraft are, of course, because it would not do to get spotted. Don't forget there are 2 aircraft carriers in this match, and they're likely to be near each other. And that's an awful lot of dive bombers that could be heading in his direction. He's almost capped. He has not yet been spotted, and there is the other carrier. So a Langley and a Bogue. Now the Langley is he's been detected. Okay. The Langley has just spotted him. At this point, it's okay to turn your anti-aircraft guns back on. Okay? Because you've been detected anyway, and they're carriers. They're going to be launching everything they've got at you. Here come the dive bombers. Come on, torpedoes in the water. When torpedoes get launched at a ship like the Langley, they're almost certainly going to hit. It is just so incredibly slow. You can probably also fire your guns now. Once again, you've got nothing left to lose. Oh, there go the dive bombers. He's hit, he's damaged, he's on fire, burns his damage control ability, fixes the damage, puts the flames out, and sinks the Langley. Okay, the team are still in the game. However, still one carrier to go. Not seeing any surface ships in the vicinity other than the carrier. But here come... Is that more dive bombers coming in? Or no, the dive bombers are being recovered, so he's got a bit of breathing space. Remember, the Minakaze's guns aren't fantastic, but it does have them. So, feel free to shoot. Oh crap, here come more dive bombers. And oh no, it's an enemy Miyogi. He's actually taking damage from the secondary batteries on the Bogue. And he's finally remembered where his guns are. Still hasn't turned his anti-aircraft guns on, though. With the torpedoes in the water, he pops his smoke screen. Obviously doesn't want to get shot at by that Miyogi. And he's managed to score some torpedo hits. Not enough to sink the Bogue, however, but he's in serious trouble. Didn't appear to take any damage from that dive bomber strike. He's popping in and out of view. He's obviously going too fast here to stay fully concealed within the smoke screen. Turn your anti-aircraft guns on, Mogdatix. In all the excitement, I suspect he's forgotten. Brings the ship around, gets some more torpedoes away. They've just lost another ship, by the way. There's only two of them left, him and a cruiser, who is far too far away to do anything. This Miyogi has not... Oh, and again managed to not get hit by the dive bombers. The carrier has to be cursing. But note that the Miyogi hasn't actually fired at him yet. Mogdatix, remember... Oh, the Bogue has dodged the torpedoes. 20 seconds before he can launch torpedoes again. Oh, shit on a stick. That is... Oh, god damn, that was close. That was just amazing. This is actually a good news, bad news situation. The good news, he's managed to avoid all the torpedoes. The bad news, he's now forced to sail in a straight line, otherwise he's going to hit those torpedoes. And there's an enemy battleship at point-blank range, who is still not shooting at him. And it's at about this point where he finally manages to nail the Bogue, although the Bogue does manage to get more dive bombers away. But it's at this point where the penny drops and he realises that Miyogi's actually AFK, and has been the entire match. Look at the scores. All he has to do to win this match, as the last player left alive on his team, is kill that battleship. Providing these dive bombers don't sink him, and once again, by some miracle, the dive bombers don't score a hit. The points gained from sinking this AFK battleship will be enough to push him over 1,000, and he's going to get himself a solo warrior medal. As long as he doesn't do anything stupid, like get carried away in all the excitement and sail within the range of the Miyogi's secondary batteries, because even if the captain of the ship is away from the keyboard, the AI gunners are not. And that would be a real shame. But he's playing it safe, he's playing it sensible. He's not being detected by the aircraft. It doesn't matter because the Miyogi's the only one in a position to shoot at him, and he's AFK. He's safely outside of the range of his secondary batteries. 992 points. Bang, bang, more torpedoes. Got him. And despite being in the wrong place at the wrong time, for the overwhelming majority of that game, Mogdatix found himself in exactly the right place at exactly the right time and snatched victory from the jaws of defeat, earning himself the solo warrior medal. 76 torpedoes he fired during the course of this battle. Only 9 of them hit the targets, but the ones that hit the targets were the ones that mattered. Next up, we've got somebody whose name I think means Chicago and Northwestern Railroad. And it's not that I can't pronounce Chicago and Northwestern Railroad, I just don't want to have to keep pronouncing Chicago and Northwestern Railroad, so instead we're going to call him Chicago Joe, just for the purposes of this replay. Here in the Japanese Tier 5 cruiser, the Furutaka. Furutaka, of course, being the first Japanese cruiser to get 203mm guns. Some really, really big guns on this ship, and it's got quite a few of them. Well, it's got quite a few turrets, but there's only one gun per turret. Nevertheless, it does have 6 203mm guns, and the American cruisers, for example, don't get this kind of caliber weaponry until Tier 7 in the Pensacola. I realise I'm almost certainly mispronouncing the name of this ship, the Furutaka, but you see it pronounced so many different ways when you're watching videos on YouTube, and yet people really do seem to get their knickers in a twist whenever I mispronounce the name of a Japanese ship. I'm not entirely sure why. You don't get this kind of rage when I'm doing a World of Tanks video. What do you mean, Jingles? Well, I regularly pronounce Jagdpanzer E100 Jaegeru, don't I? I regularly pronounce FV215B183 Death Star. Yeah. The Jagdpanzer 4 is pronounced Flat Panzer. And nobody really seems to care when I do it in World of Tanks, but if you get the name of a ship mispronounced slightly wrong in World of Warships, oh, watch the hate flooding. I don't know, Warships fans, they're a funny bunch. I should start doing it on purpose just to wind them up. So, welcome to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles, and in this replay we're seeing Chicago Joe in the Japanese Tier 5 cruiser, the Furutaka. Oh, Jingles. Oh, I've killed men for less. Oh, calm down. So, this one is pretty spectacular, by the way. All joking aside. Actually, no, not all joking aside. Let the jokes continue. I mean, that's why people come to watch my videos in the first place, isn't it? Well, at least I hope it is. Anyway. So, first contact spotted. And shots already out. And, yeah, okay, well, we'll just pretend that one didn't happen. Don't worry. Don't worry, Chicago Joe. We'll edit that one out. It's a nice looking ship though, isn't it? And it's fast. No armour, of course. But also has torpedoes. And unlike the Tier 6 Japanese cruiser, the Aoba, which has very, very good torpedoes, but is limited in that it can only really fire the torpedoes in the rearward facing arc. The Furutaka can actually fire them, well, not directly ahead, but it's got a good firing arc on them. First shots out. Was that an enemy Furutaka? I think it is. Scored some hits. Nothing spectacular. Check out this Omaha up ahead. He's already got his torpedoes in the water. I'm not entirely sure he's actually got the range to hit that enemy ship. Remember, the Omaha and the Phoenix do have torpedoes. They're the only American cruisers that do, but they're very, very short range. 5.4 kilometers, I think. Is he going to hit that guy? Then again, it's possible that those torpedoes were actually launched by the destroyer that went up there ahead of him. That would make more sense. Oh, there we go. Armor-piercing hits. Good damage. No citadels. Oh, but that was a citadel. And that was a citadel there. That's what we're talking about right there. That's these 203mm guns at work. I mean, the Furutaka's no battleship, of course, but 203mm is a large caliber for a Tier 5 cruiser. You start taking citadel penetrations at this kind of level from that caliber of gun, it's going to leave a mark. Enemy Phoenix is down. Friendly Omaha up ahead. Oh, they've lost the destroyer who went up ahead. The Omaha has managed to avoid the torpedoes launched by the enemy Furutaka. And the aircraft guns blazing away there as well. And Chicago Joe is only able to get his two forward 203mm gun barrels firing. He could. I mean, it's never a good idea to give a broadside of your ship to something that's got big guns like that enemy Furutaka. However, in this situation, that Furutaka is heavily engaged with trying to finish this Omaha off. So Joe could get more of his guns firing at this guy. And there's a citadel. That's what we like to see. These guys have got to be lining up torpedoes on each other. The Omaha can't miss from this range. Does he have... Yes, torpedoes are in the water. And he's got to kill him. Bingo. There it is. So, Chicago Joe got his torpedoes away a little bit too late, but the Omaha has managed to survive. Oh, hold on a minute. No, turn the other way. Don't run into him. He doesn't have a lot of health left. He's slowing down. Oh, and he's scraping the paint off the side of the Omaha there, who could probably have used that little bit of extra health, but what the hell. No real damage done. Well, the Omaha's getting the hell out of here to nurse his wounds. Up ahead, we've got a pair of Wyomings. Not great. Other side of the map, a Gnevny, but he's absolutely miles away. Not our problem for the moment. Up front, a friendly Nicholas-class destroyer, who has bitten off a little bit more than he can chew. There we go. Yeah, his ego is definitely writing checks that his body can't cash. He's far too close to those two Wyoming-class battleships, and he's been buzzed by torpedo bombers, so his position is completely compromised. He's got two battleships and an aircraft carrier taking a very personal interest in sending him to the bottom of the ocean, and he's just been taken out. Although he did manage to get his torpedoes away against the Wyoming in the background there, but it doesn't look like a very good launch. That Wyoming is probably going to avoid all of those. The Wyoming in the lead, however, we've got a bit of an opportunity here because he's not focusing his fire on Chicago Joe. He's instead turning around to get his guns pointing and firing at this friendly Phoenix, who's taken a fearsome battering from these two battleships. There's a couple of Citadel penetrations just landed there, as well as I'm pretty sure he just chewed on a torpedo dropped by the aircraft carrier's torpedo bombers. But this is good news for Joe, because it means he can get closer, while this Wyoming is forced to turn around or eat the Phoenix's torpedoes broadside on. While he's closing in, he keeps those two forward gun turrets going, sets the Wyoming on fire again. The Phoenix has managed to get his torpedoes away, which means the Wyoming is now committed to this turn to port. He cannot bring his guns around to point at Joe. He's nailed the Phoenix, but he's in serious, serious trouble now. The only thing Joe has to worry about right now is the secondary gun batteries of the Wyoming, because his guns are all pointing the other way thanks to that emergency turn to port to avoid the torpedoes. And Joe is never going to miss from this kind of range and at that kind of angle. The Wyoming had no choice. He had to turn one way or the other, or he was going to take a bunch of torpedoes in the side. It was just a question of whether it was going to happen sooner from the Phoenix or later from Joe. And there is absolutely no way Joe is going to miss from here. That guy is doomed. So there's his first actual kill. But let's not break out the party hats and whistles just yet, because he's still got another Wyoming and an enemy aircraft carrier to deal with. In fact, he's got a little bit more than that to worry about, but right now all he knows about are the torpedo bombers from that Hosho and the high caliber gunfire from that Wyoming. And the Wyoming's turrets are all pointing this way, and here come the torpedo bombers. He's taken a hit from the Wyoming, but it's the torpedo bombers that are going to give him the major headaches here. Get a load of this. There's the first wave of torpedoes. So he slows and turns to avoid them, and this is also going to help him avoid some of the fire from that Wyoming. But keep an eye on the other side. Here comes another wave of torpedo bombers, and don't forget, while the Furutaka does have large caliber guns for a tier 5 cruiser, it does kind of pay for that. There's the second wave of torpedoes. Surely he's going to take one of these, but it pays for the heavy caliber guns for a cruiser at tier 5 by having them mounted in very slow turning turrets. So all of these drastic maneuvers are seriously limiting his ability to actually fire back here. Who are you going to go for? You're going to go for the battleship, or are you going to go for the carrier? You can kill the carrier faster than you can the battleship, but you're going to take a lot of damage from the battleship while you're focusing on the carrier. Luckily, the cavalry just turned up. Japanese Minakaze tier 5 destroyer, and that battleship is going to be shitting bricks at the idea of there being a Japanese tier 5 destroyer getting this close to him. So the battleship, his attention is firmly focused on this Minakaze, who's already managed to get one set of torpedoes away. Chicago Joe, HE loaded, desperately trying to put this Hosho's flight deck out of commission. But it's just not happening. Meanwhile, an Omaha has turned up and is now also bombarding the Minakaze. The Wyoming, not actually much of an issue at the moment, because he's pulling such drastic evasive maneuvers with that destroyer getting so close to him that he can't actually get his guns pointed at anything. The Omaha, on the other hand, can. Lots and lots of guns mounted in very rapid tracking barbettes and turrets. Oh, there goes the Minakaze. He's done. But he has managed to get his torpedoes away, and this one looks like an accurate launch. Okay, the Wyoming didn't stand a chance. But once again, let's not break out the party hats and whistles just yet, because this Omaha is starting to do a serious amount of damage. And those torpedo bombers have not forgotten. There are torpedo launchers coming in from all different directions, and the Omaha is firing the armor-piercing. So Joe decides, well, anything you can do, I can do better. 2 Citadel penetrations. Suddenly the Omaha is not feeling very clever at all, but he's turned sideways on. Torpedoes from the left. Torpedoes from the right. The Omaha has launched his torpedoes. Joe dodges the Omaha's torpedoes. The Omaha cannot believe Joe is still sailing. Come on, Joe. Sink this guy. Damn it, he's on fire. He's taken hits. Now he's taken hits from the secondary batteries on the Hosho. Finally sinks the Omaha. And at long last, he's got this Hosho all to himself. And at point blank range like this, surely he can't possibly miss with his torpedoes. Well, you'd think so. But one of the incapacitating hits that Joe scored against this carrier early on knocked his engine out. The carrier had already used his damage repair ability to put out his fires, and it's only now just come back off cooldown. This sudden burst of speed and course change means that all of these torpedoes miss the carrier. But don't worry, because there are other torpedoes in the water that are not going to miss. And yes, that carrier did just accidentally torpedo himself. Classic. But watch out, Joe, because he managed to get 2 squadrons of torpedo bombers airborne. And Joe is actually going to take... Well, it's It's a testament to how good he is at throwing this ship around that he only takes one of these torpedoes. And that, in fact, considering the number of torpedoes that were fired at him from point-blank range during the course of this game, from multiple different directions at the same time, that's only the second torpedo that hit him. So, Joe, what do you do for an encore after that? Well, I like to get in close and torpedo battleships personally, and this is the last ship left on the enemy team, and it seems rather rude to let him live. And it's not like I don't have torpedoes to spare, so that is in fact exactly what Joe went and did. And that third kill was enough to get him the Confederate Award in that particular game of World of Warships. So, time for our last replay, and how the hell are we ever going to top that? Well, Fighting Steel Destroyer here in the mighty Fuso, the Japanese Tier 6 battleship, is going to have a damn good go. And speaking, this really is a very good looking ship as well. I realise there are people that don't actually like those pagoda style masts, but I just think they look brutal. Speaking of brutal, the Fuso has a lot of guns. 14-inch guns, the same calibre as on the Congo, but it's got 12 of them. That's a lot of firepower. Unfortunately, that firepower is only good if you can actually successfully direct it onto and penetrate the target that you're shooting at. And Fighting Steel Destroyer, well, let's just say he has problems at the start of this match. With his spotter aircraft launched to extend the range of his guns, he takes a punt at this Nürnberg-class cruiser, who turns at the very second he pulls the trigger and unleashes all 12 of these 14-inch guns, so every single one of these shots misses the target. He then unleashes a full broadside at a York, and every single one of those misses as well. And then he has another go at the Nürnberg, and this time actually hits him. Hooray! Doesn't do any damage. Boo. He's going to get this Nürnberg if it's the last thing he does. And oh, the Nürnberg's turning into an Ognavoy. Well, surely anything that misses the Nürnberg stands a good chance of hitting that destroyer. No, sorry. Not tonight, Josephine. Alright, so he can't hit cruisers and he can't hit destroyers. Maybe he stands a better chance shooting at the biggest target on the enemy team, their Tier 7 Japanese battleship, the Nagato. Or is it the Nagato? Possibly it's the Nagato. Or maybe it's the Nagato. Oh, no, wait, it's the Nagato, isn't it? Yes. Anyway, he's fired, and this time it does look pretty accurate. And 4 hits, none of which penetrate, resulting in a measly 5,000 damage. Okay, I mean, that's not measly damage if you're in a cruiser or a destroyer, but it's nothing if you're in a battleship. And this guy has just returned fire. And I think he probably penetrated with a couple of his shells, because that's 10,000 return damage. Fighting Steel Destroyer unleashes another salvo, and this time scores only 3 hits, and still does about 5,000 damage. So why exactly do people bother putting up with all the crap that you get in battleships? Because the reason is really escaping me at the moment. We're not seeing any of that monster damage that these things are supposed to be famous for. Shot after shot after shot with these huge 14-inch guns, all 12 of them, and he either misses the target completely, hits and does no damage, or hits, doesn't penetrate, and does minus spalling damage, or unleashes just as somebody else sinks the target that he would probably have killed if he'd been a bit faster on the trigger. And now he's got armor piercing loaded, and he's being lit up by a Russian destroyer. Oh, fantastic. And somebody with really, really big guns is also shooting at him. The old heavy caliber fire incoming warning going off there. It's almost as if battleship drivers are all going, yep, this is what it's like. Now he's got a Russian destroyer shooting at him, lighting him up, setting him on fire, uses his damage control ability, but he's just going to set him on fire again. And somebody keeps firing at him with large caliber guns. The old large caliber incoming fire warning keeps going off. He's turning away. I've had enough of this. He's still got the armor piercing loaded, but actually that destroyer is on such low health right now that a good hit from armor piercing, even if it is going to go, oh great, he's disappeared. Well, fantastic. I mean, oh, well, that was unexpected. Maybe his luck's changed. Well, then again, maybe not. Why is he still detected? Because he's dealt with the destroyer and there's nobody else anywhere near him. Well, nobody else except for that Omaha who's just managed to sneak around and get on his flank. And of course, after dealing with the destroyer, all of his guns are pointed in the wrong direction. He's now a sitting duck for high explosive spam from all the guns on this Omaha, which is what makes it all the more bewildering that the Omaha isn't firing his guns at him. He could have had him on fire in 3 different locations by now and done a substantial amount of damage. But he's not shooting. In fact, he's giving him time to turn all of these gun turrets around. With armor piercing at this kind of range, broadside on to a battleship, that's a paddling, I'm afraid. And that right there, that's why people sail battleships. That's why they put up with all the crap that goes with sailing a battleship in World of Warships, because when you get hits like that, it's immensely satisfying. Now, he did turn in towards the Omaha, because remember, the Omaha has torpedoes. But it looked like the guy was a bot. Well, he wasn't. He was just so concentrating on getting his torpedoes off, and there they are, that he appeared to just totally forget that he also had guns. And, yeah, well, yeah. Okay, 1 torpedo hit we can live with. He burns the damage repairability, starts recovering some of his health. He'd already used his damage control ability to extinguish the fire from the destroyer, so he's got to flood for a little bit before it comes off cooldown, and he can also control the flooding. Any second now. Come on, there it is. Bang. Okay, flooding taken care of, which is going to reduce the amount of health that he's recovered overall, but he is at least no longer in imminent danger of sinking. And he's managed to get 2 kills. So you never know. Maybe his luck has actually changed. No, it hasn't. That is the Japanese Tier 6 destroyer, the Mutsuki. And he's getting very, very close indeed. So, fighting steel destroyer, loads the high explosive. Come on. Oh, wait. No, he's turning. He's turning. Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. Don't forget, battleships got their close range accuracy buffed a couple of patches back. And absolutely none of them hits the targets. Well, of course they didn't. Why would they? It's going to take a long time to reload these guns, and all the while he's reloading, he's getting closer and closer to this Mutsuki. Now, his secondary batteries would normally be quite dangerous against a small ship like this at this kind of range, but he can't expose his side where all of his secondary batteries are located, otherwise he's going to eat a broadside of torpedoes. So instead, 4 shots at a time, and he's done some damage to that guy, but... and there are the torpedoes. You've got to fight the urge, because this is what gets battleships killed at close-range fights. You turn broadside on to get all of your guns firing at these little buggers, and they just go, cheers, sucker, can't possibly miss now, and they sink you with a broadside of torpedoes. Unfortunately, your main defence against destroyers at point-blank range like this, your secondary batteries, are all located in the side of your ship. So it limits your ability to use those against them, and look at that, 4 shots at less than 3 kilometers range, only 1 of them hit, with 14-inch high explosive, and still didn't sink the little bugger. He finally gets taken out by somebody else, and fighting steel destroyer heaves a huge sigh of relief. But it's like I always say, if you can't take a joke, don't try battleships in World of Warships, because they'll make you lose your sense of humour very, very quickly indeed. Cheeky bunch of shots here at an enemy Pensacola, and this was always going to be a kill. I mean, he had next to no health. Well, having said that, he had to actually hit him first. And we've seen numerous examples of that not working so far in this replay. And he's had a pretty miserable game so far. I mean, he's sitting here looking good on 3 kills, but he's only actually scored 20 hits. 2 Citadel penetrations, and those were at point-blank range against an Omaha who had forgotten that his ship had guns. So, I'm really not feeling the love for battleships so far. It's not quite as bad as driving artillery in World of Tanks. You know, you can do absolutely everything right. Perfect positioning, perfect concealment, perfect aim, and then your shots just miss anyway, because the roll of the dice says, nope, these shots are all going to deviate by 200 meters from the point of aim. But good news, he's managed to kill the Congo. Hooray! Bad news, he's about to get hit by a wave of dive bombers and set on fire. Good news, he has a damage control ability to put the fire out. Bad news, there's another wave of dive bombers. He was really, really lucky there that he didn't get set on fire a second time by that second wave of dive bombers. More lucky than he realises because of what's about to happen with that enemy battleship. Now that guy is being attacked by a friendly destroyer, and hopefully by the torpedo bombers, or at least the dive bombers coming in from the friendly carrier. But his secondary batteries with various different upgrades can fire out to a range of 7 kilometers, and, well, yeah, that's really, really bad news. It's also bad news, by the way, for Fighting Steel Destroyer here, who, remember, has just used his damage control ability and is going to be unable to extinguish a fire for quite some time. Because here comes some fire from the secondary batteries. Wouldn't you know it? Yeah, sets him on fire again. And he's just going to have to burn, because there's nothing he can do about it at the moment. It's going to take 40 seconds for his crew to put the fire out, and it's a minute before he can use the damage control ability. So he's just going to have to take some burning damage for a while. Now, the enemy battleship has just taken care of the destroyer, which means he's now able to swing his guns around, and oh dear, Fighting Steel Destroyer is sailing broadside on to a battleship. That's a paddling. Oh yeah, that's why people sail battleships, isn't it? So you can do monster amounts of damage like that to other battleships. It's just a shame Fighting Steel Destroyer hasn't. Why do you bother? I mean, oh crap, hang on. Hang on a minute. There may only be one ship left on the enemy team, but the enemy team are at 915 points, and that's a Ranger class carrier, and he's over 26 kilometers away. The friendly carrier is doing what he can to try to nail him with his dive bombers, but the Ranger's on full health, and that's only one squadron of dive bombers. And don't forget, the Ranger's got fighter aircraft, and you know what being engaged by fighter aircraft does to the accuracy of bombs and torpedoes. So there is no way the carrier is going to finish that guy off. Look at that, full health. And he's 26 kilometers away. I mean, oh, whoa, hang on a minute. Fighting Steel Destroyer has a spotter aircraft. So he launches his spotter aircraft, and this extends the range of his main battery guns by 20%. And now that Ranger is just in range as these dive bombers go in. Come on, dive bombers, do your thing. And they're in the dive, bombs away, every single one of them misses. But Fighting Steel Destroyer has got some shots out. 12 14-inch guns at the extreme limit of the range. Come on, this shot for the game. Show us why people play battleships. Here it comes. Here it comes. 4 hits. No damage. Oh well. It's been a lovely war. And the Ranger's fight screen has just shot down the last of the dive bombers that were spotting him, so now nobody even knows where he is. So that's it. Game over. Well, it is game over, but not quite in the way you might expect, because even a broken clock can tell the right time twice a day. He got those citadels right when he needed them. Look at that. 4 of them. Full health Ranger, dead, 1 hit. Which was kind of lucky in more ways than one, because it not only won the game, but it kept him alive. Look how much health he has, and look at how close those dive bombers are. So if it hadn't been for that 1 in a million quadruple citadel penetration blind shot Ranger carrier kill, he would not only have lost the match, but he would have lost the ship as well. But that hit at the end of the match, oh yeah, that's why people sail battleships. I'd forgotten. That's it for today, folks. Hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.